Listen to this. Any footballer can be stopped. It doesn't matter how quick your feet are or how good your dribbling looks on YouTube. Put 5 defenders around you and sooner or later, you're going down. That's football. But that's also where the game betrays itself, because no team in the world can go 90 minutes without committing a foul. And that tiny inevitability is exactly what made Juninho Pernambucano untouchable. Because for Juninho, a free kick wasn't a chance. It was a sentence. It didn't matter if the ball was 30, 35, even 40 meters out. If you fouled near goal, you were already punished. His right foot didn't feel human, it felt engineered, like a sniper rifle disguised as a boot. Thierry Henry once said free kicks against Juninho felt like penalties, and the scariest part was that nobody could explain how he did it. Andrea Pirlo, one of the greatest dead ball specialists ever, admitted he collected old DVDs of Juninho's games, rewinding them over and over, convinced there had to be some secret. In the end, he laughed and said it must be black magic. Defenders knew it too. You could see it in their body language. They stopped tackling properly. They hovered, hesitated, tiptoed around him and his teammates, terrified of making contact. One wrong step, one accidental shove, and they weren't defending anymore. They were spectators, standing still while the ball bent into the top corner. And yet, reducing Juninho to just free kicks is almost disrespectful, because if he hadn't chosen loyalty over legacy, football history might talk about him very differently. Barcelona wanted him. Bayern wanted him. Real Madrid feared him. Rivaldo personally begged Barca to sign him, and Juninho still said no. He stayed at Lyon to repay the club that saved his career, even if it meant sacrificing the spotlight. Ask Juan Diaz Penzimao, a man who shared pitches with Ronaldo himself, who the most clutch teammate he ever had was, and Juninho's name comes out first. At his peak, Europe's giants didn't just respect Lyon, they dreaded them. Barcelona, Bayern, Madrid, all of them fell. And this dominance didn't start in France. Long before Europe even learned his name, Brazil had already crowned him king. He dragged a Vasco da Gama side that hadn't tasted league glory in 2 decades and turned them into conquerors of South America. Twice, he left them one step away from being world champions. And here's the part that feels unreal. Juninho didn't even join his first football academy until he was almost 17 years old. That's because in his house, football wasn't just discouraged, it was forbidden. His father was ex-military, disciplined, well-off, living in a nice neighborhood, and in his mind, football was for kids from the streets, not his son. If he found a ball inside the house, he wouldn't argue. He'd take a knife and cut it open. So Juninho adapted. While his father was at work, he would sneak downstairs to a small pitch beside their building, gathering other kids from the apartment blocks. He convinced one of the parents to coach them, registered the team for an under-10 futsal tournament, and they didn't just compete, they dominated. In the final, they destroyed Náutico, a real first division club, 6-1. Juninho finished as the tournament's top scorer, and in one of the old recordings, you can hear his coach whisper, almost to himself, "I just hope I live long enough to see him play for Brazil." Still, none of this happened overnight. Even when Santa Cruz, one of the biggest clubs in the state, finally offered him an academy contract, fear held him back. Not fear of failure, but fear of his father. Juninho couldn't even bring himself to ask for permission. In the end, it was his sister who quietly changed his life, going behind their father's back and arranging a trial at Sport Recife, the club Juninho had loved since childhood. It was his first real shot at football, and even then, it almost ended before it began. The coach took one look at him and said, half joking, half serious, "You're white, you've got green eyes, what are you doing here?" It was a reminder of how out of place he seemed in Brazilian football at the time. What followed was pure defiance. In less than 2 years, Juninho was playing for the first team, and not just filling space, deciding games. Against their rivals Santa Cruz, he scored twice, even rounding the goalkeeper for the second goal to send Sport into the next stage of the competition. He followed it up with another long-range strike on the road to the final, then assisted the only goal in the first leg as Sport Recife were crowned Pernambuco champions. The fans called that squad the Golden Generation, mostly because their average age was just 22. Juninho, he was only 19. But there was still a problem. This was Pernambuco, far from Rio, far from the spotlight. If they wanted respect, they needed something bigger. So they went and shocked Brazil. In the national championship, a team that usually got brushed aside suddenly started knocking giants over. They beat Corinthians to reach the next stage, then landed in a brutal group with Palmeiras, Santos, and Botafogo. Palmeiras scraped past them thanks to an own goal. Santos were held. Botafogo were destroyed 5-2. Commentators brushed it off as luck, a purple patch, something temporary. Then came São Paulo, the reigning world champions, fresh off beating AC Milan and Barcelona. And that's when Juninho announced himself to the entire country. He was everywhere. Sliding tackles, recoveries. Then the quality. An assist, a goal, total control. Sport won 5-2. The commentators ran out of words, calling it an 11 out of 10 performance. São Paulo's legendary manager Tele Santana walked into the press conference, calmly said his team hadn't played badly, paused, and added, "There was just one boy who was outstanding." He asked for Juninho's name, smiled, and said, "You can say goodbye. He won't be here long." He was right. Even though Sport missed the quarterfinals by the finest margin, Juninho closed the year lifting the Nordeste Cup, scoring yet another long-range screamer against Fortaleza. After just one full professional season, Ricardo Rocha, a World Cup winner and former Real Madrid defender, personally urged Vasco da Gama to sign him. And yet, when Juninho arrived, expectations were low. It felt like a gamble, a shot in the dark. That gamble paid off immediately. In his very first appearance, Juninho smashed in a goal from outside the box. Opportunities followed. Minutes turned into starts. By his second season, he was the team's main free kick taker, finishing the year with 13 goals. That's when Vasco realized this wasn't normal talent. By year 3, it was borderline absurd. Teammates later revealed the club had to order special 7-foot training mannequins just for him, and even then, it didn't help. Out of 5 free kicks, 5 went into the top corner. And strangely, the further he was from goal, the more dangerous he became. Whenever Vasco needed something, anything, it was Juninho who delivered. Goals, assists, moments. As Vasco lifted their 3rd Brazilian championship, even with Edmundo scoring 42 goals, it was Juninho the players hoisted into the air. The stadium echoed with one chant, "Juninho is our king." And still, they hadn't seen the best of him yet. The following year, Vasco's centenary season, he assisted the winning goal in stoppage time of the Carioca Championship final. 2 months later, with Vasco needing a goal to reach the Libertadores final, Juninho came off the bench. 9 minutes left. A free kick from 35 yards. The wall edged forward, desperate. The referee pushed them back. Juninho stepped up, and when he struck the ball, it didn't fly. It floated. Like a paper plane, bending midair, drifting into the top corner. Commentators went silent. That goal opened the door to the final and eventually to the title. The fans voted it the most important goal in the club's history by a landslide, 5 times more votes than any other. To this day, it remains Vasco's only Libertadores title. And 26 years later, whenever River Plate are mentioned, Vasco fans still sing about that free kick. Monumental, timeless, Juninho. That year, there was only one thing left that could crown everything Vasco had built, becoming world champions. And for a moment, it genuinely felt inevitable. In the Intercontinental Cup final, when Real Madrid took the lead through an unfortunate own goal, Juninho responded the only way he knew how, by taking responsibility. One touch to set himself, one clean volley, and the ball flew into the top corner. For a split second, the football world froze. Vasco weren't just competing with Real Madrid, they were outplaying them. And then, football did what it sometimes does. Raul appeared out of nowhere and scored one of the most devastating goals ever seen in a final. Just like that, the dream slipped away, turning what could have been Juninho's greatest day into one of the most painful of his career. And heartbreak, unfortunately, wasn't done with him yet. In 1999, Juninho came back sharper, angrier, and more decisive. He opened the year by scoring and assisting in the semi-finals of the Rio-São Paulo tournament, then dominated the final with 2 goals and another assist to secure the title. He became so essential to Vasco that when Brazil called him up for a national team match against Argentina, the club literally had a plane waiting so he could fly straight back and play for Vasco later that same day, all the way from Uruguay. That's how irreplaceable he was. And when Romario joined the squad just as Vasco were invited to the very first Club World Cup, it felt like destiny giving them a second chance at global glory. They bulldozed their way to the final, even knocking out Manchester United's treble-winning side, and belief exploded. This was it. But once again, football was cruel. A penalty shootout loss to Corinthians crushed the dream. For Juninho, that was the breaking point. He promised himself something simple. From that moment until the end of the year, Vasco would not let a single trophy slip away. And somehow, he kept that promise. In the Copa Mercosul semifinals, he assisted one goal and delivered the pass for another as Vasco eliminated River Plate yet again. He scored the opener in the finals' first leg, but it still went to a decider. At halftime, Vasco were 3-0 down, reduced to 10 men, staring at humiliation. What followed was chaos, belief, and pure defiance, a 4-3 comeback that still feels unreal. At the same time, Vasco were battling through the Brazilian Championship knockouts, and every time they fell behind, Juninho dragged them back with decisive free kicks. Last 16, semifinal, final. Another league title, another masterpiece. He was voted the best midfielder in Brazil for the second year in a row as the crowd begged him to stay, fully aware the club was underpaying him badly. And eventually, reality caught up. With the board refusing to adjust his contract, Juninho took the dispute to court and found himself sidelined for 6 months. It could have dragged on even longer, until Lyon stepped in. 14 years earlier, Jean-Michel Aulas had bought a struggling club with one dream. Take Lyon from the second tier to the top of French football. They had ambition, but no trophies. When Aulas saw Juninho's situation, he knew he'd found the missing piece. Lawyers worked non-stop, loopholes were found, and before Vasco truly realized what was happening, Juninho was packing for France. Or so it seemed. Rivaldo caught wind of the situation and immediately pushed Barcelona into action. Suddenly, Juninho was being offered far more money than Lyon could ever match. When Lyon's representatives waited at the airport and Juninho didn't show up, they thought the deal was dead. Hours later, Juninho called. He had missed the flight, but not the decision. He told them straight, Barcelona could have offered 200 times more, but he'd given Lyon his word and he would keep it. In Brazil, people laughed. Most fans barely knew Lyon existed. To them, French football meant PSG and Marseille, nothing else. 1 year later, no one was laughing. Lyon entered the final match day 1 point behind Lens, needing a win against Lens to take the title. When momentum began shifting and Lens pulled a goal back, Juninho stepped in, gliding past 3 players and threading a perfect pass to seal the goal that won Lyon their first league title in 52 years. And he wasn't done. The next season, wearing his beloved number 8, he didn't just create chances, he sent a message. 2 months in, he scored a hat trick that included 2 free kicks. One so outrageous, it left Patrick Müller staring in disbelief. With 10 games left, Lyon were third, 3 points off the top. Juninho delivered again. A brace to turn a match around, a winner here, a clutch goal there. By the end, Lyon edged Monaco by a single point and lifted another title, with Juninho, absurdly, finishing as the club's top scorer. And just in case anyone thought this was luck, his third season erased all doubt. Against Bayern Munich, he produced back-to-back man-of-the-match performances, creating 4 clear chances in one game and winning 21 of 22 duels. Numbers that barely sound real. In the return leg, he scored a free kick so vicious that Oliver Kahn misjudged it completely and smashed into his own post. Lyon topped their Champions League group. They fell in the quarterfinals, yes, but it was still the best European run in the club's history. Domestically, the story repeated itself. 6 games left. Lyon second again. Juninho scored in 3 straight matches and clinched a 3rd consecutive league title for a club that had been in the 2nd division just 14 years earlier. And only now does the real prime begin. Back at Lyon, the dominance continued. 2 more assists against Real Madrid, another Champions League group topped, a nomination for FIFA World Player of the Year, another league title, this time 17 points clear, yet another record. And in 2008, Barcelona became the next victims, as Juninho scored twice on the biggest stage. That sealed Lyon's 7th consecutive league title, a record not just for France, but at the time across all top 5 European leagues. Even Real Madrid had only managed 5 in a row during their golden era. By now, people said it openly. Juninho was a big fish in a small pond, a player who could have stood on the Ballon d'Or podium if he had chosen Barcelona. But he didn't. He stayed loyal. And after 7 more outrageous free kicks, one of them leaving Victor Valdés clinging desperately to his post, Juninho left Lyon as their undisputed greatest ever player, responsible for an astonishing 41% of the goals scored during their golden era. And even then, he wasn't done. He went to Qatar and won everything available. Returned to Vasco da Gama and scored from a free kick just 2 minutes into his first match back. At 37 years old from midfield, he recorded 25 goal contributions in 50 matches. He reunited with Thierry Henry in the MLS, then returned home once more. And 4 months later, football took its final cruel toll. As the saying goes, find something you love and let it kill you. Juninho went to strike another free kick, collapsed in pain, and never played again. But by then, it didn't matter, because the game had already bent itself around him.